specific area of the, it cuts off, of the 12 steps of, or the tools of the program. The BDA toolkit and the 12 steps of DA. Welcome, Evan.
Evan, how would you like your time?
How long do I have?
15 minutes.
If it's not too much, can you give me 5, 5, 3, and 2?
Sure, no problem.
Recovering time debtor over here. Hi, everybody. This is a strangely intimate and not intimate experience at the same time. Thank you so much to Dirk, my good buddy and DA fellow for a long time, for asking me to share. I'm nervous, and the reason I'm nervous is because I have a gigantic ego that is insecure and wants everybody to love me. I'm hoping that I will get past that and share something of value about DA with all of you. I want to give a shout out to my sponsees who keep me on the beam and keep this program alive for me. And I want to thank all the people who helped me all these years in DA, people who've been around for a long time, like Mindy and Sierra. The number of times I cried on Sierra's shoulder is uncountable, as is my gratitude for DA. I love this program so dearly. It's changed my life in so many ways. And I've written so many, I'm looking over here at my notes. I've written so many notes this week about what I want to say. There's no way I can get to it all. So I just pray out loud right now that my higher power will guide me to what needs to be shared. So speaking of being an egomaniac, the way that it manifests for me is I want to be admired from afar. I don't want to go through the difficult interpersonal relationships. I want you to think I'm amazing and keep your distance. And so at 23, I dropped out of film school and endeavored to make my own feature film and put it all on a credit card with some friends, and promptly went into debt. And it took 4 years. And at the end of that process, I was $24,000 in debt. And my life was a mess. I was living with 3 other guys, and we would pay the bills when we got the final red notice that they were going to shut something off. We would do the dishes when the stench from the kitchen got so great. You know what I mean? This is how I managed my life, and I was bouncing like 3 checks a week. Like I was just a red hot mess. And somewhere in that time, I discovered that I was going to be a father. And that for me was, I thought, the worst possible news I could get, because I was going to be this amazing filmmaker. And that was my trajectory, and that this was going to prevent that. And, I had a horrible moment in that process where I was talking to my son's mother, and I said, if you're going to have this baby, I'm going to kill myself. And the reason I said that was because at that moment in my life, I didn't feel like I could take care of myself, much less anybody else. I had no tools, nothing. I was trying to go from 0 to 60, trying to go from 0 to be this amazing film director. And I had no tools or skills for living, no notion of keeping numbers or anything. And so I was just in this low, and I started DA, and I learned to keep my numbers, and I learned how to show up. And I remember, because I had this God-given instinct to make films, and then I had the no tools, and I had this ego and this grandiose thing. And the God-given instinct was like, okay, I want to do this. Let me take it from here. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to show everybody what a genius I am, was kind of my pattern for living, and drove that bus straight into the ground. And so I got to DA at age 30, and I had $13 to my name. My car was a shop. I didn't have a job. I was just a disaster. And I got my first PRG together within a month, and I've been abstinent 23 years by the grace of God. And I had my first PRG, and I was like, okay, finally here, I'm going to learn how to really do this. I'm going to learn how to be the filmmaker I've always wanted to be. And they said, okay, well, what have you done for money? And I said, well, I've waited tables. And they said, great, we want you to get a job waiting tables. And I was like, fuck you. No, what are you talking? I don't need to come here for you to tell me that. Well, I came here to be this. What are you talking about? But I did. I went and I took that job, and I learned how to show up on a daily basis, and I reconstructed my life, and I learned how to be a worker among workers. And I remember this moment. I walked in one day and I saw these two busboys, and one busboy was the kind who was like, he's like, what do you need? What can I get you? And then the other guy was like me. He was like, I'm too good for this job. You know, and I thought, wait, who am I going to promote between these two guys? I want to promote the guy who says, what do you need? So I endeavored to become that guy. And at the end of 4.5 years, my program had progressed, my faith in God had progressed, my financial life became much more sober. And at the same time, all this good stuff, and at the same time, my soul and what I knew about God and life had grown outside of this small little job. And I hit, thank you, and I hit this bottom. And I was chasing this fantasy and this idea of being this amazing filmmaker, and I couldn't let it go, and I couldn't shake it until finally it drove me to my knees. And I said, God, kill me or give me work that I love. I don't care if it's filmmaking. I don't care if it's washing dishes. Just give me that peace, because I was in so much pain around my ideas of who I should be and what I should be accomplishing and what I was in the world and all that. And, you know, there's a bunch of stuff. I'd love to tell you the story. It's a great story. I don't have the time to go into all the specifics of it. Call me and I'll tell you. But I went through this journey, and on the other end of it, through a sponsee of mine, I got a job designing movie posters, and that led to doing motion graphics, and that led to becoming a 3D artist. And so now I had a whole new career that was truly God-given, and it was because I stepped out of the way and stopped controlling it. And that was amazing, and my life grew. And then by the end of 10 years, I had my own business, and it was great. And it was about 10 years in that I knew that I could trust God with my life, and I knew that God had me in the palm of his hand. And then I also realized that I hadn't tackled the real beast for me, because I got into DA and I stopped debting, and that wasn't really that hard to abstain from debting. But then I started to deal with under-earning, and that was something. That was like, I call it an exorcism, because that's when I really got to come face to face with this disease. And this disease is a mother. And the way that I look at it now, the destructive power of the disease of our under-earning is incredible. And it's a mind-centered disease, and it's a spiritual sickness that tells me I'm not worth anything, that I have no value in life. And so on the one hand, over here, I'm growing spiritually, and I want to fulfill my potential. And on the other hand, over here, I have this thing that's telling me with all the force of its constitution that I'm not worth anything. And so I got a sponsor, and I worked the steps around under-earning, and I started to have this shift, and I started to work at this whole new level. I went from earning 50 grand a year to earning 130 grand a year and 180 grand a year. And I was terrified every day, because I didn't feel like I belonged there. I felt like I'm not supposed to be here, and any minute they're going to find out. That's where I found out that I had all this old programming and all of this stuff from my parents, my family, my father, that told me this. And it's like, I couldn't have both. I couldn't be a loser and be earning 130 grand a year and designing amazing things. They couldn't live together. And it was like tearing me apart. You know, and finally the God-centered portion won, you know, and I continued down that career, and I started to earn a lot of money, you know, and it was great, you know, and it was all through DA, and I continued to grow as an artist and all of that. And I went in and out of working for other people and working for myself, you know, and that's when I really became, for me, clear about the real pain of under-earning is not that I can't afford a new car, or that I don't dress enough to impress. It's that I'm not giving my talent, skills, and abilities to the world. You know, the disease of under-earning is a disease of hiding. I'm too ashamed of myself, and so I stay hidden, and I avoid my life, and I avoid who I am inside and the great things that I have. And so I started giving these gifts to the world, and I started earning money, and it was fantastic. You know, I have a wonderful, beautiful marriage today as a result of these steps, and my life continued to improve. And then I hit a certain point at which I realized I have to sort of reconcile my vision. You know, it's like I came in with this vision, and there were periods of time where I had to abstain from having a vision because it caused me too much pain. And I remember there was a moment, I turned 45. Yes, I'm that old. I turned 45, and I realized I'm going to be dead soon. And so it's kind of like the Shawshank Redemption moment, get busy living or get busy dying kind of thing. And I remember a very specific moment where I said, you know, I was mad at my father because when I was 13, my dad said, well, you're going to be in high school soon. You need to start figuring out what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a filmmaker. And he said, no, you don't, or you'd be doing it already. And I was just crushed. And I stayed crushed. And I stayed not believing myself. And for so long, I blamed him for not supporting me. And every time I would mention filmmaking, it would bring up financial insecurity for my wife. And I said, she's not supporting me. And then I had an aha moment. I said, who's not supporting me? And I realized that I wasn't showing up for myself. So I began this practice. Thank you. I began this practice of writing every day and showing up every day for my vision and for what I needed to do. And it started out small and it continued to grow. And that worked in tandem with my earning to the point where I was really starting to build some momentum and confidence in that arena of my life. It's like I didn't have the finances and I didn't have the wherewithal to go out and just like make these films and do that, but I could write every day. So I did that. And I became the head of this screenwriting group and I did all that stuff. And then I got to the point where I realized that I was living my vision every day by showing up and doing it. And that was so different from how I started this journey of being a filmmaker, where I expected to make this one grand gesture and become this amazing thing that everybody would love. Instead, it was this slow daily practice of showing up every day and doing what I needed to do. And that I loved that and that I enjoyed that. And that became a gift in itself. And I was living my vision. And so I put together this workshop. I'd done a bunch of under-earning workshops that people seem to respond to. And so I did a Living Your Vision workshop. And I put that workshop on in LA. And the next day I got laid off. And I was like, okay, here we go. I'm going to go live my vision. And I started to like swing toward really like doing that and putting it out there and taking the actions. And one of the things that had really made a difference for me in breaking through under earning was calling 3 people a day. And so I did that in this arena. And I said, I just started cold calling and just saying, hey, I do motion graphics. I'm an award-winning designer. I'm trying to segue into filmmaking. And the first guy I called, I swear to God, he said, you're doing this all wrong. And he said, here's what you should say. And I took that and I called people. It was like God talking to me. It was such an amazing gift. And so now today I've created, I've moved out to Palm Desert and I've, with God's help in collaboration with God, I've created this job where I'm a commercial director where I write and direct commercials every day. And I wake up every morning at 4:30 and hit my knees and I pray and I keep my numbers and I do an hour's worth of writing and I show up for my vision. And now I'm getting to practice that every day. And so it's extraordinary for me what's happened in DA. And it continues. There's no end to this journey. There's no end to the growth. And for me, it's this sort of like 1-2 step of like willing to take the action and earn more, and then do more of what I love, and then show up for the mechanics and the things like this, and then get to do more of what I love. But it's a willingness to sort of take direction and to be willing to listen to God's voice and to what's next. And thank you. And I'll wrap up. And what's next? I have 2 minutes. And what's next for me is I'm at the next stage of I've been doing this job now for 4 years, and I can feel the universe swirling around. I can feel that it's about time for the next spiritual breakthrough. My clock is about every 4 or 5 years, I go through some kind of bottom that shows me how I've been doing it all wrong and how I now need to do it. And the COVID is perfect because I'm like a productivity addict. And now I'm just sitting here with myself and I realize how much, bolstering of my ego I get by working every day, what I wanted, there was one thing I really wanted to share, and that was, you know, uh, for me, what I need to do is I need to reach out to industry people. Oh, and you know, in that writing, 8 years later, I've just completed with a DA fellow my first professional screenwriting gig, so I can call myself a professional screenwriter. So today, I'm a professional screenwriter and I'm a professional filmmaker. And there was no way that was going to happen by my power, you know. And there's more that I want to do, and that's fine, because I just need to go to God and say, what do I need to do next? So I know some of the things I need to do, and guess what? I'm scared to do them. I'm scared to call industry people and reach out, and I'm scared to get a PRG and make my business official. So every day I get to continue to work and pray to God to show me what to do next, and then pray for the courage and the willingness to take those steps. And the last thing I want to say is, you know, we don't give advice or anything in this program, but, you know, for those of you who are thinking about whether to throw your hat in this ring and to do this work, you know, I guarantee you amazing things will happen in your life. And who am I? How can I guarantee it? Doesn't matter. I guarantee you, your life will become this amazing masterpiece if you do the work and you show up. And as we say in 12 step, you know, or will gladly refund your misery. So, you know, I just want to circle back to the gratitude. You know, during this whole COVID thing, I haven't had an ounce of fear of financial insecurity. You know, I was a little upset when I found out I'm getting no unemployment, but I have cash reserves today. I have abundance in my life. I'm saving more than I ever have, you know. So I'm just really grateful. And I hope you all heard something that was valuable for you. Thank you.
Woohoo! Great read.